So let's talk about the lifestyle grid. The reason this comes first in the report is because it summarizes a lot of other information that we're going to look at. I often refer to the grid as a map of normal human behavior because we all fit on this grid, we're all different. And as well as the grid telling us something about ourselves, it also helps us understand something about where we fit with other people. So it's worth saying that in terms of population distribution, the distribution is pretty even across the grid. So wherever you are, you'll be able to tell something about where most people are compared with you. If you find yourself in the yellow corner on something, you'll know for sure that most people in the population are more towards the green corner than you are. If you're in the red corner, you'll know that most people in the population are more towards the blue corner than you are. Even if you're right in the middle of the grid, it's still telling you something. You know, most people in the population are more towards one edge of the grid than I am. Okay, so very quickly, the four colors of the grid, starting at the top left corner, the red. Red is really about execution, production, those kind of things. People who are strongly oriented towards the red quadrant are all about getting stuff done. Their time focus tends to be on the present and what's urgent. Staying at the top of the grid but going to the right hand side, we've got people who are all about selling, motivating, engaging with others. So those are things that are typical for the green quadrant. In terms of time orientation, the green quadrant is also focused on the now, but it's much more about the present opportunities, what's possible in the present. Going down the bottom of the grid, the yellow quadrant is all about systems, process, administration, order, those kind of things. So if you're strongly oriented towards the yellow quadrant, that'll be what matters to you. In terms of time orientation, there tends to be a focus on the past, not in the sense of being stuck in the past, but in terms of past performance will be a predictor of future performance. And then finally, the blue quadrant at the bottom right tends to be about creativity, innovation, ideas, strategy. In terms of time orientation, tends to be about the future. People who are very strongly blue in their profile will be less worried about how things are going today, as long as they can see that things are going to be better in 5 months' time or 5 years' time or whatever it is. Now, in terms of the markers that we put on the grid, there are four. You'll see we start with an asterisk. This is a summary of the areas of interest we're going to look at in the next video. But on the grid, the best way of thinking about the asterisk is that it summarizes what you want to be involved in, what you want to see achieved. So if your asterisk is in the red, you want to be involved in getting stuff done. If it's in the blue, you're more likely to want to be involved in coming up with new ideas and creativity. If your asterisk is in the green, you're likely to want to be involved in selling things. If it's in the yellow, then you're more likely to want to be involved in putting things in order, getting things in good shape. So that would be the asterisk. It's the next three that we probably need to explain a bit more. The diamond, the circle, and the square. These three go together on the grid, but they also are going to pop up again when we look at the behavioral components. The diamond is what we call your usual style or your usual behavior. The circle, your underlying needs, and the square, your reactive or stress behavior. Now you'll notice in that list there's two kinds of behavior, usual behavior and stress or reactive behavior, and then in the middle there's this underlying needs. Now it's worth just unpicking this a little bit because it's fundamental to the value that you can get out of Berkman. There's a lot of tools that will help you articulate your usual style. Your usual style is what you're aware of anyway. It's what you expect of yourself. It's how you would like to see yourself operating. So your usual style is probably going to come out very similar to what's come out in any other tool that you've done in the past. What's different about Berkman and where we can really engage with the idea of understanding and managing the issues that potentially could derail us is that we also get a measurement of what really matters to us, which may be very different from what we expect of ourselves. So for example, I may expect myself to be very direct with other people and yet need a much more sensitive response from the people around me. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly normal. In fact, most of the population are somewhere in that region. But the important thing about that need that I expressed, a need for people to be more sensitive when they deal with me, is that need is not visible to other people. In fact, it may not be visible to us ourselves. So when we talk about needs, you may find yourself thinking, oh, I wouldn't have said that about myself. But you'll also probably find yourself thinking, yes, but I think that actually makes a lot of sense. That fits with things that I've kind of been aware of, that I've sort of been at the back of my mind, and maybe I haven't had a way of articulating. So when we talk about underlying needs, we are talking about stuff that is not on show to other people and is not fully visible to us ourselves necessarily, but we will be aware of it when these things are raised. Now, the way this works is that as long as my underlying needs are being met for the most part over time, then I will tend to behave in the way that I expect of myself, my usual style or usual behavior. But if over time my underlying needs are not being met, then we're going to see more and more of my stress or reactive behavior. And for the most part, for most people, most of the time, the best way to understand stress behavior is that it is an unconscious, counterproductive attempt to get my needs met. So as you go through the diamond, the circle, and the square, just bear that in mind. The diamond, you're likely to recognize and say, yeah, that's what I expect of myself. The circle, the underlying needs, you'll probably find yourself saying, yeah, no, that probably is true. And then when you look at the reactive or stress behaviors, we're not expecting you to say yes necessarily to all of the ones that are listed, but the important thing is to, can I see one or two or three stress reactions that I find myself getting into on a fairly regular basis, because those are then a good marker for these potential derailer issues that we talked about. Now, as I say, when we get to the behavioral components, you'll find that they are broken out into those same three constructs: usual behavior, underlying needs, and stress behavior. Thanks for listening.